I'm Juan. This is my presentation called Learning Together. And the person that I chose, the article that I chose to read and use for this discussion was one by Dolores Sado. And she's a Colombian artist, and she focused mainly on the conflict and the loss from that conflict in her country, and she very much emphasizes the idea of not forgetting people that either are easy to forget in these sorts of situations, or the government actively does not want people to remember, or whether that be people that killed, or whether that just be general tragedy. And so the person that I relate to this is Kat Kogowitz. I'm not sure if I'm saying that name right, but whatever. She was born in the North German Confederation in 1867, and she focused on sculpture, sketches, and woodcut. Interestingly, she started off as a more traditional painter with her dad, who encouraged her a lot to sort of study that sort of stuff. However, she began more focusing on the sort of drawing and sketch that you'll be able to see in mainly the first piece of art. Her work started a bit like realism, and you can kind of see the difference in the realism and then in expressionism in her second work that I'm going to show you. And a cool fact about her is she was the first woman elected to the Prussian Academy of Arts and the first woman professor at the same university. However, the Nazis kicked her out of that in 1933 when they took power, which once again you can see some emphasis on that sort of stuff. So her first art that I wanted to focus on was The Prisoners, which is part of the Peasant War series, which is basically, if you don't know what the Peasant Wars were, basically it was a bunch of revolts that happened in modern Germany in like the 1500s. So you can see how that relates to Dorsey's belief of not forgetting people. Well, and in particular, I think this relates to Saucedo's work Fragments, which was basically a bunch of iron and like a bunch of metals from weapons that were from Colombian rebels, those that were melted into one piece and then were made into an artwork. And that kind of reminds me of this, where it's like a bunch of people on this sort of like grand scale, like just sort of in this small space. And you don't know these people. You can't really like understand them. Like, for example, you can't look into their eyes because their eyes aren't like, they're just not there. They're either like blindfolded or they're like cut out, or they're just like not present. And it's important in the historical context. This was before the First World War, which is something that influenced her greatly. And this was when she was first starting with a lot of both anti-war and also just generally about people who lose a lot in war. Like I said, this is part of a series called The Peasant War. There's a few other works in that series, and they all emphasize a very similar thing. The second work that I wanted to focus on was The Widow 2. And this one was a woodcut piece, which basically meant that it was done with wood and not just like drawn. And so one of the most interesting things that I learned while researching this was the original concept of this piece of work wasn't that there was going to be this mother on the floor dead, but instead it was going to be the mother on her knees with her child in her arms. And so I think it's interesting that she made the active choice to not do that and instead make that into just make it more sad with mother being dead and also the child. Like I said before, she emphasizes a lot of loss in her story and a lot of her artwork, and you can see that with, the loss of both like the actual loss and also the loss of the memory of the people. So you can see that in like how the baby's face is like sort of shadowed, and you can just sort of see it's a very, I guess the word would be grotesque or like sort of sad sort of people with like all like the wrinkles and lines all across the body and also the dress. And this relates to her own personal life, which I'll get into with the second work, or the last work, which is The Mother with Two Children. So, Kat Kogowitz was a mother of a few children. In particular, her son Peter was drafted into the first, or not drafted, but he actively volunteered into the First World War. And he was killed in the first few months of the war, and this very much influenced other works after the war. And specifically, a lot of them focused on motherhood and also a lot of the loss of children, loss of family, all that sort of stuff. And you can sort of see this. This one was made in between 1932 and 1936, and the relevance of that is that was around the time when the Nazi Party started getting into control, and they did not like her. And the only reason why they didn't kill her was because at this point that she was already like very rich. She was of notoriety internationally as well. So she very much made this as both like a protest and also just saying a lot of her works later in life were focused on an anti-war or like family message. Some of her works were literally just called like no more war, things like that. And you can just sort of see that influence of family and like loss in those works, which I think is relevant to this quote by Salcedo, which is the images are offset. It's not only the memory of the past existence, but also light of the memorial ethos, and that's why art matters, because as all of her work, are similar to Doris, relates to loss and tragedy by war, and I think that government actively tries to forget, either in the moment or later governments try to do that. And the point of art, and also a general thing that we should be doing, is not forgetting that. And that is my presentation.
Thanks, Juan. Really thought-provoking presentation. Audience, your reactions?
What was your favorite artwork that you chose and why?
That is a really hard choice because I really like all of her artwork. There were so many that I could have chose that I really liked, and a lot of them, and of course I couldn't use all of them. So I think from this set here, I think my favorite would probably be, I think it'd be the second one, just because of the, just sort of the context of why it was made, with how it was related to the loss of her child, and also because it's just like, it's just a really interesting piece of work, very relevant to her own life, very much expression of her own feelings. She did a lot of self-portraits in her life, and a lot of those are really sad and like very like, you can sort of see her mindset in life and her like emotions. And I would recommend looking into those in particular. I didn't use them because I thought these were also very interesting.
I really appreciated how you made connections from one piece to the next, and you also chose a variety of media, because I thought a nice introduction to Kollwitz. So this is the first time I'm actually learning about this artist. So nice learning experience for me. Thanks, Juan.